All right, we are going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Audit Oversight Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Whipper,
Here.
Elo Rivera,
Present.
Vargas is absent. Hall,
Here.
Moreno,
I'm here.
Bush, Bush is absent. Goebel.
Present.
Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much, Clerk. Let's move to non-agenda public comment. This provides 2 minutes for anyone who would like to comment on something that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of the Audit Oversight Committee. Clerk, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
We do not.
Thank you, Clerk. We will now take up approval of the minutes of the July 13th Audit Oversight Committee meeting. Clerk, do we have any public comment on approval of the minutes?
We do not.
All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes from Vice Chair Goebel.
So moved.
And we have a second from Member Hall. Any discussion on approval of the minutes of July 13th? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. That motion carries. Let's move on to our one discussion item, which is the draft of the fiscal year 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Aaron Dunn will provide our presentation along with Ken Poon and Coley Delaney of the Poon Group. Please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Today we are here to talk about the audit for our FY23 financials that we have concluded, as well as the annual comprehensive financial report that you have the final draft of that we hope to release to the board next week. Remotely, we are joined by our external auditors, Ken Poon and Coley Delaney, who will kick off the presentation for us.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, AOC committee member. Again, my name is Ken Poon. I'm the managing partner of the firm, also the technical partner on this particular engagement. And along with me is Coley Delaney, who is the engagement partner of this job. We have, as Aaron said, we already have a final draft ready to be approved by the AOC and finalized after this meeting. And this is a standard presentation, AUC standard, AUC section 260, communication with those charged with governance, will summarize of what we are required to communicate to you, and also giving you a 30,000-foot level of the overview of these financial statements. And very importantly, we'll pull out the key pension information, the OPEB information, and last but not least is to deliver the audit results to you. So first thing, let's talk about audit responsibility by both management and auditors. As management yourself, you are fully responsible for these financial statements. By preparing the financial statement and have a fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle. The Governmental Accounting Standard Board is the standard setting bodies for state local government financial reporting. So that's why MTS financial reporting is abide by all these GASB pronouncements. Management also is required to design, implement, and maintain proper internal control to the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements to make sure that they are free from material misstatement, whether due from fraud or errors. Also, in preparing these financial statements, management is also required to evaluate whether there are any condition or event considered in the aggregate that will raise substantial doubt about MTS' ability to continue as a going concern for the 12 months beyond the financial statement date, which is after today, 1 year, including any current known information that may raise substantial doubt shortly thereafter. As your auditor, we're engaged to perform the audit and form our opinion on whether these financial statements are presented fairly in all material respect in accordance with GAAP. We are required to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, about whether these financial statements are free from material misstatement. We also consider internal control, but such consideration was solely for the purpose of determining audit procedures that we perform and not to provide any assurance consider the effectiveness of the internal control. However, if we identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiency, we'll also point it out in our presentation and also in a written form to you. I also include the additional list of auditors' responsibility based on the new SaaS statement, the statement of auditing standard 134, which is also included in our audit report to you, which say that we also need to exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We are not only perform our audit through inquiry, we also obtain all the supporting documentation to support the amount and the disclosure in the financial statement. We identify and assess risk of material misstatement of these financial statements, whether due from fraud or errors. Looking at the design and perform audit by doing the risk assessment, we are responding to the risk that we identify throughout the risk assessment process. So that because of the reasonable assurance, we only perform our procedures on a test basis to collect evidence and supporting to the amount to the financial statement. We are required to obtain an understanding of the internal control relevant to the audit in order to design our audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the internal control. Therefore, no such opinion is expressed. We also need to evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policy which is used and the reasonableness of the significant accounting estimate made by management, as well as evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statement. And keep that in mind, the summary of the accounting policy was being reviewed by our firm, and then also it's being properly disclosed in the notes to the financial statement. And concluding whether in our judgment, whether there are any condition or event that may raise substantial doubt about the MTS ability to continue as a going concern. So it's on both sides. So I'll turn it over to Coley Delaney, and he'll walk you through the high level of the financial statement.
All right, thanks, Ken. As Ken mentioned, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the standard setting body for MTS. And they did have another implementation that required a restatement to the prior year's financial statements. So what this slide shows is a couple of restatements that we made since MTS does report comparative financial statements. So both the 2022 and the 2023 financial statements are shown. So there were some restatements to the 2022 numbers that we had to do. So in this year, MTS implemented GASB 96, number 96, which is for subscription-based information technology arrangements. And so obviously they needed to show those effects on 2022 since the comparative statements were issued. As we're looking here, the effect for GASB 96 implementation as a whole was very minor. It was only about $26,000. But what that statement did do was bring on additional intangible capital assets for right to use software, as well as liabilities for subscriptions payable. But more significantly, as far as restatements to 2022, upon getting updated information regarding 2022 capital contributions that were provided by Sandag, MTS retroactively removed about $11.4 million of capital assets that were contributed to MTS by Sandag, but that actually belonged to another agency. And all this information is shown in a restatement of net position footnote in the ACFR. So similarly, on the changes in net statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position side, we did see opposite changes that we saw on the other side there. Again, a very small adjustment for GASB 96, and then a more significant one to the capital contributions that were recorded previously. Okay, so here's again, as Ken mentioned, 30,000 sort of foot level discussion of the summary statements of net position. So this is the primary government, so that is just MTS. It does not include the SCPC employee retirement plan. The numbers of 2022 that we're showing here have been restated from last year's presentation. So current assets saw a $122 million increase in cash and investments. The decrease in non-current assets was mainly due to the depreciation on capital assets. For deferred outflows of resources, pension deferred outflows increased $35 million due to 4 CalPERS investment returns during the pension measurement period, which was 2022. The current liabilities are similar to 2022. And non-current liabilities increased by $64 million, mainly due to a $76 million increase in the net pension liability. Again, that was caused mainly by CalPERS investment returns and a change in the discount rate. For deferred inflows, again, it was mainly pension deferred inflows. Those increased by $33 million, again, mostly related to those CalPERS investment returns. Overall, net position increased by $24 million from last year, as we will see on the next slide. All right, so here is essentially the summary statement, income statement. Operating revenues saw an increase in passenger revenue of $13 million. And there were small changes in miscellaneous and advertising revenues that kind of made up the rest of those operating changes. Non-operating revenues saw federal revenue increase by $50 million, and STA funding increased by $13 million, and other state revenue increased by $11 million. For operating expenses, the increase of $81 million was mainly due to an increase in depreciation and amortization expense of $32 million. Other large increases were in personnel costs, and that increase of $30 million, again, mainly was attributed to pension expense and also energy costs, which also increased by $12 million year over year. Capital contributions, big change there. These are net capital contributions, with some coming into MTS, some going out to other agencies. Obviously, last year we had the Mid-Coast Trolley extension that was contributed by Sandag. So that was kind of a one-time huge number that we didn't see again this year. So overall, and then non-operating expenses remained static. MTS had a loss before capital contributions this year of $23 million, but ultimately the net position decreased by $24 million. Just a quick look at the summary statements of cash flows. Cash flows from operating activities is receipts from customers, payments to suppliers and employees, and payments for claims. This decreased $22 million in 2023 versus 22. Non-capital financing includes public support, so that's going to be your federal grants, TDA, STA, and Transnet funds. Those cash flows increased by $87 million year over year. For capital and related financing cash flows, the decrease this year of $10 million was mainly due to spending on capital assets, capital asset additions, which were slightly less in 23 versus 2022. And cash flows from investing activities shows interest received on investments, which increased in 2023. And that was mainly due to for MTS's investment portfolio, basically due to increased interest rates. So overall cash, there was an increase in cash and cash equivalents this year of $123 million compared to $46 million last year. All right, so quickly here, this is just a summary of the SDTC employee retirement plan, which is included in the ACFR in the fiduciary activities. The assets are made up of plan investments. Those increased $6.5 million year over year. The liabilities typically consist of a net amount due to MTS, who's the plan sponsor, and a couple other miscellaneous payables. So not a ton to talk about there. But overall, versus last year, the net position did increase by $6.3 million. And then again, with the SDTC employee retirement plan, this is their schedule, their summary statements of changes in their fiduciary net position. So the net investment income consists in 2023 of $11 million, consisted of $7.1 million in realized and unrealized gains, and $4.5 million of dividend earnings, which is, when compared to last year, that net investment loss consisted of a $29 million loss on realized and unrealized losses. And then there was $7 million of dividend earnings last year. So obviously the portfolio performed a lot better in 2023 than it did in 2022. Distribution to plan participants increased slightly. And this year there was a positive change in net position of $6.3 million versus a loss of $27.6 million last year. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Ken to talk about some key pension and OPEB information.
Great. Thank you, Coley. As you know, GASB, pension and OPEB is in accordance with GASB statement number 68 and 75. And those numbers on the financial statement are purely an estimate based on the assumption that was being used, and the also heavily relied on the rate of return on the planned investment. So MTS definitely have like 4 different plans, including the MTS, which is a CalPERS cost sharing plan. SDTC, which Coley already talked about, is a standalone SDTC plan. Also SDTI, which is the trolley, also with CalPERS, but this is a multi-agent agent plan. And then also you do have the SDTI with the PARS. The total current net pension liability reporting as of June 30, 2023, using a measurement date as of June 30, 2022, totaling $226 million. As you can tell, just looking at the slides, both MTS and SDTI because it's under CalPERS plan, the discount rate has dropped by about 0.25%. So dropping from 7.15 to 6.9%. So relatively, the net pension liability has gone up quite a bit. So this year, the MTS liability, the net pension liability, is about like $17.7 million, and SDTI PERS plan is $46.3 million. The SDTC is pretty consistent, $160.2 million, while the SDTI PARS is $2.4 million. One of the things that regarding the PERS plan, as you can, one of the things that what you kind of go into the next slides, I think we talk about the funding liability too. Not in this slides, but we can certainly talk about that. The funding liability have been significantly dropped because two factor. One is the rate of return on those investment plan during the valuation year was significantly lower. Instead of compared to last year, there was a significant gain during that year. So, like for example, MTS, your last year when we reported to you, you have almost like 87.5%, while this year 87.5% funded, while this year is only 76% funded. While the SDTI, let me take a look at the SDTI. The funding ratio for the SDTI dropping from 101% going to 76%. So there's a significant change in those two plans. I would like to point that out, kind of going back to normalize, going back to the year before, not the year not in the year 2022. So going to the next slide and looking at the pension expense, just because we need to recognize the loss, kind of bump back up the net pension liability. There is a significant increase in pension expense recognizing in these year financial statement. The total pension expense, $35 million compared to last year, $18.9 million. Next slide. And then OPEB liability, because OPEB MTS did not set up a 115 irrevocable trust, so therefore you're using a 4.09% discount rate to evaluate your total liability. So at the end of the day, June 30, 2023, you reported as $42.6 million as your liability. Next slide. And then the OPEB expense is actually dropping about close to 600,000. So it's still very relevant, very comparable to the previous year. So then it's not much of a change. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Coley, to talk about the audit results.
Thanks, Ken. So just audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. We did issue an unmodified opinion on the ACFR that, and so what that means is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The significant accounting policies have been consistently applied. Estimates in the financial statements are reasonable, and the disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. And as far as other results, once again, we'd like to, we're happy to report that we had no disagreements with management. We noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, and no accounting issues were noted. And so with that concludes our presentation, and we'd like to open up to comments and questions if you have any.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right, thank you, Clerk. We will open it up for board discussion. The proposed action on this item is to receive the draft, and we will begin with Vice Chair Goebel.
Thank you, Chair. Can we go to slide 14, please? There it is. So we can see the net investment income loss of a positive 11 million in this year versus a negative 22 million last year. That's due to mainly the market value of the investments. Is that true? Because am I right in thinking that not?
Yeah, and I would point out that again, this slide would refer to the transit employee retirement plan only, and this is a financial statement that is included as fiduciary activities in the ACFR, but this is reporting on the asset, essentially the activity of that plan for this year.
So my question is, does that swing affect the amount of pension expense?
It does. So the $11.4 million was primarily due to investment return for this year, and we'll be bringing that back, the pension financial statements and the actuarial analysis in probably the February board meeting. But that does, I mean, anytime we can have investment returns that exceed our targeted number, then that will have, and we smooth it out over a period of time, but that does have an impact on our contributions for future years. Every investment return gets smoothed over a 5-year period. But yeah, anytime we're above that target, we get to it's a result in a reduction in that contribution level. So that makes sense.
And what you're saying is that negative 22 million and the positive 11 million will be smoothed out over 5 years.
Correct.
So that we're not seeing these wild swings in expenses.
That's correct.
Okay.
And as we have taken that investment return target down over time, it's given us a little bit of flexibility in terms to achieve those targets every year.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goebel. Seeing no further comment, I just want to thank staff for all the work that went into preparing the statements. I want to thank the independent auditor for this report, Mr. Poon, Mr. Delaney. Thank you for the presentation. Glad to hear the statements are presented fairly in your opinion. Also want to congratulate staff for the fiscal year 2022 Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Always good. So congrats on that. Well, again, the proposed action is to receive the draft. I'll go ahead and make a motion to receive this draft. We have a second from member Elo Rivera. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving the draft, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. That motion carries. Moving on to our other items, are there any staff communications or committee member communications?
If I may, the board policy on our audits requires that someone from our committee will ask questions of the auditors directly. Is anyone willing to volunteer? We'll give you the script. Okay.
Vice Chair Goebel.
Don't all jump up at once.
All right. And when does that take place?
We'll be bringing it back to the board next week. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we will look forward to that. All right. All right, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.